The exile was meant to be their end. Humanity had been cast out, labeled too dangerous, too unpredictable, too violent for the so-called civilized galaxy. The United Galactic Council had come together in secret, deciding that humankind was an anomaly, one that needed to be erased. Not through war, not through outright genocide, but by simple abandonment. The plan was simple. They loaded the last remnants of humanity onto old colony ships and sent them to the void, into uncharted space where no one would follow. No supplies, no guidance, no future. They would die in the dark. At least that was the expectation. The truth, however, was something no one in the galaxy could have foreseen. 500 years later, the Galactic Council trembled at the mere mention of the name, the Terran Dominion. A forgotten people, banished to the abyss, had not only survived but had thrived. They had conquered. They had adapted to the brutality of deep space, bending entire star systems to their will. They had built warships that could tear apart fleets, trained soldiers who knew nothing but war, and spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Terran Dominion was not just another empire. It was the empire. It had no equals, no rivals, and no mercy. And now, after centuries in the dark, they had returned to the galaxy that had abandoned them. On the bridge of the dreadnought Indomitable, Admiral Darius Voss stared at the holographic display before him. The Galactic Council's homeworld, Celestria Prime, floated in the vastness of space, its defensive fleets scrambling like ants beneath a shadow they had never expected to see. "Send the message," Voss said, his voice carrying the weight of generations of suffering. The communications officer nodded and transmitted the broadcast to every council world, every outpost, every colony. The words were simple, unambiguous, and laced with the cold fury of a civilization that had not forgotten its betrayal. "We are humanity. We were cast into the void and left to die. You sought to erase us, but we have returned, stronger than you could have ever imagined. Now the galaxy belongs to us." Panic spread like wildfire across Celestria Prime. The Galactic Council, the once mighty rulers of the known universe, had never considered this possibility. Humanity was supposed to be extinct, a forgotten footnote in history. Now their ships darkened the skies, their fleet vast and unstoppable. The cold, precise words of Admiral Voss echoed across every communication channel, chilling leaders to their core. On the surface of Celestria Prime, High Chancellor Aurelius stood in the grand chamber of the Council, surrounded by holograms of leaders from 100 different species. His normally composed features were pale, his hands trembling as he gripped the edge of the podium. "This cannot be real," muttered Chancellor Razek of the Vorkal Dominion, his reptilian scales shifting in distress. "We abandoned them. They should have perished long ago." "And yet they have not," said Councillor Dren Veli of the Celadari, her translucent skin shimmering with unease. "They have returned, not as refugees seeking mercy, but as conquerors." Silence fell over the chamber. No one dared to speak the thought they all shared. The Galactic Council had made a mistake. A grave one. They had feared humanity for its potential for violence, its unpredictability. They had believed exile was a merciful solution, a way to ensure the stability of the galaxy. But they had never considered what would happen if humanity survived, if it adapted, if it evolved. Now their nightmare had come to life. Aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Voss observed the chaos unfolding in real time. Their intelligence networks had already infiltrated the Council's communication systems. He could see the fear in their eyes, the hesitation, the realization that their power meant nothing anymore. A grim smile played at the corners of his lips. "Order the fleet to move into position," he commanded. "I want every council world to see our strength." The officers saluted and carried out his orders. Across the void, the Terran Dominion's fleet advanced, hundreds of warships spreading like an unrelenting tide. Unlike the sleek and elegant designs of the Council's ships, the Terran vessels were built for war, dark, angular, heavily armored, and bristling with weaponry. They were not here to negotiate. They were here to reclaim what was taken from them. On the Council floor, Aurelius forced himself to remain calm. He activated his private channel, linking to the commanders of the Council's defense fleet. "Deploy all available forces," he ordered. "We must make a stand." "Sir," came the hesitant voice of Admiral Kyle, the supreme commander of the Council's military. "We are outnumbered and outgunned. Their technology is—" "I do not care," Aurelius snapped. "We are the Galactic Council. We have ruled this galaxy for millennia. We will not bow to an upstart empire of savages." A long pause. Then Kyle spoke again, his voice heavy with doubt. "Yes, Chancellor. Engaging the enemy?" The battle for the galaxy had begun. The void ignited with war. The Galactic Council's fleet surged forward, a desperate attempt to halt the advancing Terran Dominion. Thousands of sleek, silver ships moved in perfect formation, their energy cannons glowing with deadly intent. From the surface of Celestria Prime, civilians watched in horror as the sky above them became a battlefield. And then, the Terran fleet opened fire. Massive railguns thundered, sending projectiles the size of buildings tearing through the Council's ranks. Plasma torpedoes streaked through space, striking enemy cruisers and reducing them to molten wreckage. Unlike the Council's reliance on elegant energy weapons, the Terran Dominion had mastered the brutality of kinetic warfare. High-velocity rounds that ignored energy shields, tearing through hulls like paper. Admiral Kyle barely had time to react before his flagship, the Celestial Honor, was struck by a barrage of hypervelocity slugs. The bridge shuddered violently as entire decks were obliterated in an instant. Alarms blared, and his officers screamed in panic. "We're losing containment on the starboard side." "Multiple hull breaches. Damage is catastrophic." Kyle gritted his teeth. "Return fire. All batteries. Target the enemy battleships." The Celestial Honor launched a retaliatory strike, but it was a pitiful response. The Dominion's ships were larger, more heavily armored, and built with a level of efficiency the Council had never encountered. For every Terran warship that fell, 10 Council ships were obliterated in return. This wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. From the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Voss observed the battle unfold with cold precision. He had expected resistance. He had even expected desperation. But this was pathetic. The Galactic Council had grown complacent, soft. They had spent centuries ruling from their gilded thrones, growing